Hey guys, I'm Rick, and that is One Big Pile of Bricks with our amazing guest, Holly on film.
Hello!
Yay!
I'm really happy to be here. It's a long time coming.
It's been a journey.
Yeah. I'm just so glad my flight didn't get cancelled this time. I was so worried being the school holidays. I was like, please not.
I know last time we were like trying to like pin it all together. That was the time when like everyone was getting COVID.
So stressful. And then I was like about to go on holiday. I was like, honestly, it's probably a blessing in disguise that it got cancelled.
Yeah,
because
I remember we were trying to like sort it out. We're like, when we're gonna come?
It was a nightmare.
But you're here now, thank goodness. I was crossing my fingers all week because there's a lot of rain up in Sydney right now.
Wait, brackets, famous YouTuber.
It was so weird because I'm like, well, I just started this because there was no Harry Potter reviews and I wanted to watch one. Like, here we are.
So you do have a YouTube channel.
I do.
Holly on Film.
Yes, formerly Potter Minifig Pals, if anyone remembers that.
I was trying to remember that yesterday. I was like, it was Harry Potter something. And
it was a blatant rip-off of the Potter Puppet Pals, and I will admit that 10-year-old me loved watching the puppets just like sing and like their little skits, and like I fully just wanted to like, I guess, make a stop-motion version of that, because at the time I was watching a ton of like Forest Fire, like Batman stop motions and all that. So I remember blatantly ripping it off, and like I felt really bad about it when I like started posting again. I was like, well, I have a Lego channel already. Like, I should probably go back and reuse that instead of start a new one.
Sure.
But I was
that
like,
makes sense.
Like, I remember it like instantly. I was like, I need to change the name. Like, I need to think about it. And I was like, the longer I leave it, like, the harder it's gonna be. Like, I need to do it sooner rather than later. I'm glad I did, because like it's much nicer being known as like Holly, like my name, and just like me as a person, and like the whole username anyway. Like, I made it so that it related to like my film and television background, and like I love taking photos on like 35mm film as well.
Oh wow.
Which was like a whole part of it. Even though, like, don't ever post any
Sorry,
of them.
Caroline, 1 second. So let's just get the thing out of the room and just shut down all the AFOLs and explain to them how you got into it, because everyone just assumes...
How you got into YouTubing.
Like YouTube and like everyone just automatically... Not everyone, but most AFOLs will put you in a box saying you only got into it because you're a girl and you're pretty... and all that sort of stuff. But explain to people, like you explain to me, like that you actually have a very talented background.
Yeah. So, I mean, originally, like, I first posted, I would have been 11 at the time or something. And back then, it was like you had Nitroud 99, The Brick Show. Everyone loves it. I feel like I didn't say it properly. The Brick Show.
That's
like,
exactly
you gotta say it right, and like with their big green wall of minifigures, iconic. And then it's like you had the Brick Queen, and like she was the only female besides like I think it was like Lego show reviews or something. It was like 3 sisters who've just fallen off the face of the earth, and like that was about it. And I was like, oh, this looks fun. Like, I have Lego sets, let's talk about them, and filmed everything on my iPod Touch with like some bricks holding my iPod up, and everything was in one take because at the time I didn't know how to edit, and our Wi-Fi was so bad that like I had to upload it from my iPod, otherwise
you like
it wouldn't
plugged
work.
it in old school.
It was horrible. And then because I kept watching all these stop motion videos, I like learnt about editing and like editing software, so I tried that, but I was like, actually, I'm a child. I don't have the budget to buy all the pieces and minifigures that I would need to make all this content. And then slowly I just got out of it because I was like, oh, okay, well, my parents are telling me I can't buy Lego anymore. Like, I'm 13 years old. I should buy like clothes and save my money and things like that. And so I'd only buy like a couple of CMFs. And I got like back into at least Lego YouTube during the time. Like, I would still edit videos, and like I've got like a couple of old YouTube channels where like I'm still proud of the videos, but like everything's just like unlisted now and like private. And like I have like old like dance vlogs and things like that from when I went traveling, and like I still send them around to my dance friends because it's just like fun for memories. So I've done it for ages, and then I just got back into it because I was like, oh, no one's posting any Harry Potter reviews because everyone who gets sent stuff, you know, it's COVID, everything's getting delayed, the US major delays. I was like, oh wait, there's Lego stores in Australia and they have it in stock. Okay, I'll buy them. And I remember like sitting down to film the first one, and I was like, I don't know how to do this anymore. I was like, I used to do this. Like, I've watched all these videos. I know the concept of it. Like, how do I do it? It's like the first like 3 were a bit dodgy. I remember filming my astronomy tower review, and I had to do it in our downstairs like media room because it was the only place that had a table big enough to put all the Hogwarts castles together. And my sister walked in and she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, like no one's like filming like Lego Harry Potter reviews, so I thought I would just do it. She's like, oh, that's cool.
Please tell me you left that in the video. Like, that would have been like...
I was in like the original recording, and I was like... like freaked out. And I was just like, I really hope she doesn't say anything. And then like, I was enjoying it, so I just kept going, and then like people were watching and actually enjoying it, and then I like learned more about the grander Lego community and like other themes, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Like started branching out and like doing other things and watching more channels, and then it just like exploded, and now it's my full-time job.
Yeah, but also you've got a media background because your parents are in it, and you've done it.
That's one thing that I feel like definitely benefited me, because it's like straight off the bat, like I feel like whenever you start a YouTube channel, like so many people ask me like, oh, like how do you do it? I'm like, you got to keep going, because otherwise you're not going to get the confidence to just like stare at a camera. Like it's really weird, just like, and if I stare like right into the lens right now, like it's weird to do.
She's got the creepy eyes, Dan. She's got the creepy eyes.
It's awkward at first, and it's
really
like that's why like you see so many people like looking at the viewfinder, like the camera's there and they'll like talk over here, and it's so noticeable because it's just it's weird, and like it takes you a very long time to get comfortable, but it's like I'd done that for a while, and it's like I knew how to use like complicated editing programs. Like I remember doing like this color grading course at like a film school to make sure that all the colors looked really pretty. So it's like
but I've got worked on some IMAX stuff as well.
I did. That
you got to give yourself more credit. Yeah. You're like trying to be like, oh, you know, I just did this thing, but you're actually quite talented.
Yeah, I have like VFX background, which like is really helpful now, because I'm like, oh yeah, like green screen stuff, that's cool. Want to do a cool introduction for myself? Oh yeah, I can do that. Like make my channel banner myself, and just like I remember like when I
does that mean
Disney
I don't
trips,
need Dan anymore? Sorry, Dan.
sorry. Holly's too busy doing her own content.
Exactly. So even I even like did a website like course like during lockdown, because I remember going through this like panic in 2020, and this was like roughly when I'd started my channel. I was like, okay, the film and television industry, it's destroyed. Nothing's here. Okay, like panic. Okay, well maybe I should like look into doing something else. And like one point I was signed up for like a veterinary nursing course, and I lasted 2 weeks, and I was like, nope, I need to be sat behind a desk, and I need to be like in a computer and doing something else there. So I went and did web design, because it's something I dabbled in before. Yeah. My dad was just like, hey, do you want to redesign this website? And I was like, okay. And I just sort of taught myself how to do it. I was like, I should probably learn how to do this properly. So it's like I've even got like a background in that. It's just like anything like techie or like really even like I guess like sort of niche things. Yeah, I've probably done that.
My comment to you earlier when we first, because we've spoken over like internet friends is always weird, right? Because you chat and you like interacting with each other, but when you meet people in real life, it's so kind of like awkward. You're like, oh hey,
I
like,
know you really well, but I really don't know you.
And like,
thing.
Oh, definitely.
I made the comment like, I feel so dumb around you, Holly, because you're like, like you know all this stuff, and I'm like, I just got a guy to do it. Like, I just think it's great that you're successful.
I mean, you've got like completely different skill set to me though. It's like you can't call yourself dumb. Like all your skills are in a completely different area that I'll have.
Yeah, but selling Lego is like selling Lego, but like.
But Rick's had the benefit of time. You haven't had the benefit of time, so you've had to fast track it.
Literally, my entire like career was just built off of we're gonna throw you in the deep end, and like you'll pick it up eventually. Like everything in my life, like even from like my dancing, I remember like when I first started like ballet and like tap. It's like okay, I did this like really late in life. Like people would start when they're like young kids, and I'm like 14 like learning tap for the first time. I was like, I'm pathetic, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just like sort of pick it up, and like then I started like working in film and television straight out of high school. My dad's like, right, here you go, like here's all of this information, all of this technical terminology. And like it took me like a couple of months to like really understand what things meant, and sort of I guess even just get confident with like using all of that stuff. And like it was a lot, but it's like I'm really glad that I did do that, like especially in something like film and television. Like I learned so much more, like just going out and like meeting people and just like having I guess just real world experience than I feel like I would have if I did go to university. I mean, if you're gonna be a doctor, go to university, but like from my personal experience, it's like I learned a lot more, and it's also like a lot of the people you do know.
It's like Dr. Nick like walking in like, here's your arm for a leg, a leg for another.
Heart surgery, it's easy. So it's like I also was like very fortunate. I mean, people like I see all the time on TikTok, it's like all of these nepotism actors. I'm like, I mean, I'm a nepotism child in like the post-production. I mean, I'm very grateful, but that's one thing I love about YouTube. I'm like, I built this myself. Like, this is me. And like, I think that's why I love it so much. It's like, I can like go to the dinner table at night and my dad's talking about his day and my sister's talking about her real estate day. And I'm like, oh yeah, so like I did this like really cool thing. We just like hit a big milestone. Like, oh, I'm going to a Lego convention. It's like, it's all based off something that I like did myself and put my time towards, which like was based off all of these skills, I guess, that I've learned along the way. But it's like, I've also like expanded upon that, and I'm really proud of it overall. Like it's so
for
cool.
someone like, and I don't like saying young because I'm an old man, because I'm like, like, but like you've complete, like, most people's goal, like, when they get into YouTube is to hit, like, milestones, right?
Oh, definitely.
And it's always, like, chasing the number. And we touched on this earlier when we were chatting, that, like, everything on social media and YouTube is edited the way you want it to see it, right?
Oh, it's a highlight reel. It's like if someone doesn't want something in there, you can get it out. It's like people are sneaky.
Well, and you can edit out when you're having a bad day, because everyone has bad days. Like, and, you've had, like, massive success. You've done heaps of Lego stuff. Like, you've done a lot more than the average person. You've just come from Brickworld, Chicago. How was that?
That was insane. It was my first ever Lego convention, and I remember...
Was it really?
Yeah. Like, I remember, like, 2020 or something, like, I'm going back watching all this, like, old Lego content. I'm like, oh, like, Lego conventions, that's a thing. So I'm watching all these, like, vlogs from 2019 and 2018 and just seeing this. And I'm like, what is this weird thing? And then, like, the more people I met online and, like, got to know, like, different channels and different people, I was like, oh, I really want to go to one. And I was like, oh, Brickvention exists every year. So I tried to go to that, and then it got cancelled in 2021, and then I was like, oh yeah, I'll go 2022, and then there was a giant COVID wave, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't, like, book for that. But I also felt odd. Yeah, it was bad. I was like, kind of glad that I, like, sort of dodged that bullet, but I was also like, oh, like, I feel like I should go to the one where, like, I know more people. So I just said to my dad one day, I was looking up flights, and there was, like, some points flights available on, like, Qantas, and I was like, hey, like, I called him up in the middle of his workday. I was like, hey, this flight's available for, like, a Lego convention. Can I go? Fully expecting him to say no. But he was like, yeah, you can go. I was like, okay, like, book this, like, back in September. The borders hadn't even opened at this point.
And you're nervous because is it going to reopen,
yeah,
right?
I was like, am I going to, like, this is the first time I was going to be meeting people in real life at this point. I was like, this is weird. Like, am I going to have people to hang around with? Like, am I going to know anyone? Like, flying all this way to, like, meet people for the first time. Like, it was daunting. I also, like, didn't know what a Lego convention was going to be like. It's really the first, I guess, place that I would go as well that people, like, may know who I am. Like, of course, like, I'll go to the Lego stores and occasionally people will be like, oh, are you Holly? And I'm like, yeah, but, like, I'm not going to, like, I guess, a place and sort of saying, hey, I'm going to be here, sort of thing. So it was, like, really weird. I was like, I don't know what to expect. I was like, is it going to be weird? Like, am I going to feel, like, really left out? But then it's like, luckily things happened, and I met a couple of my friends.
You are
from other
famous
things.
in the Lego community. Like,
yeah,
you're, like,
it's weird.
Like, it's not, it's really hard. Like, Lego famous is a weird thing, right? Like,
definitely.
we have it because of social media, and it's not really famous, but it's in the Lego circles you're famous, right?
Yeah. Like,
you
you're
have
known
quite a large
your
following, like, especially on YouTube, because every time you put out a video, they're all getting notified that your video's out. Like, you're getting kids and, like, sometimes weird adults that want to meet you, like, right? So it's like, it must be such an amazing feeling being like, oh, I like your videos.
Yeah, it was so surreal. It's like, I remember just, like, I was going, and, like, firstly, it's like, it was really glad because I had, like, the vendor pass, so I was there pretty much all week.
Cool.
And people are setting up their mocks, and it was nice because it's like, as the days sort of went on, it just got bigger and bigger, and it sort of, like, I guess, let me know this is, like, what's happening.
Yeah.
Like, it's, like, slowly becoming a bit more every day, so I wasn't, I guess, completely overwhelmed all at once. And it was, like, so cool to see all of these builds, because, like, before I haven't seen, like, giant mocks being built besides, like, Brickman type stuff. Like, I remember there was an exhibition years ago. I didn't even know if he did it, but it was at, like, the Sydney Aquarium and, like, the, like, wildlife thing. It must have been like 2011. It was, like,
did it have a shark there?
Potentially.
Yeah, it was
like one of those things. It's like, that's really the only stuff that I'd seen, like, not people's just mocks that they've made.
Yeah.
So I got to see all of that, and then, like, the public days happened, and I was like, okay, like, I went to, like, the LegoCon, like, stage show live stream that M&R Productions was doing with a couple of my friends, and, like, all of my friends were all sat side by side in the front row, and like, oh, this is cool, and he's got an entire room filled of people. It was insane. And it's like, we go out, and like, oh, cool, we'll have lunch. I step outside the room, and people are coming up to me and, like, all of my friends, and they're like, hey, can you, like, sign this postcard? And I'm like, my face isn't even on this. Like, I wasn't a part of this.
It's a weird feeling, right? It's really weird.
Yeah, that's also your voice. As soon as you're over there, say in the US, they're hearing this accent and they're going, oh, that's different. Oh, I've heard that voice before. Yeah. Who is that?
That and the blonde hair gave me away instantly.
Straight away, like, oh, it's Holly.
Yes, exactly.
So it was like, people came up to me, and, like, we were, like, sort of tried to move out of the way because we're like, we don't want to block anything. Like, there was, like, a giveaway stream going on at the same time. And, like, this woman, like, comes up to her, she's like, do you guys mind moving outside? And we're like, well, I mean, half of that line's not for us, but okay. And it's just like these people, like, one after one, hey, can you sign this? And it was, like, really nice because it's like, otherwise all you see is numbers. And it's like, that can really mess with your head. And I'm like, I don't really like to think about it because I'm just like, hey, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying my hobby. Like, I'm having a great time. I love my life. Like, awesome. So it's like really nice for someone to come up and be like, hey, I watch your videos. And like a lot of the time, like, I guess, especially if they're like interacting in like live streams or comments, like I want to know your usernames. Like I want to know who you are. So it's like the most surreal thing for me was like seeing like a couple of people who were like members on my channel. So it's like I knew a couple of them were coming. Like they're people in like my Discord server who are always on my live streams. It's like, I know about your life. Like, oh, I know you work, like where you work. I know that it, like you like passed your test at school. And it's like my first ever member, her name is Ali. And I remember like I hadn't even like said that I've set up memberships or anything at that point. She like joined and I saw her name and I was like, oh wow, that's so cool. I got to meet her at the convention and it was so cool because I was like, no, I know who you are.
How did she find it? Was she like fangirling?
Yeah, she looked like really excited. She was like,
oh my God, it's Holly.
Really glad I was able to like find you. It's like, I went to the Lego store in New York and I'm like looking at like one of the models and like my sister's asking a question, be like, hey, where's the minifigure factory? And the dude's like, hold on, like I know that accent. Oh, wait a second, like, are you Holly? And it was like his birthday. His name was Jetty. It turns out he actually edits Mini Superheroes Today's videos.
Oh, really? That's
so it was
cool.
like really cool. And he was like so excited. And like my sister filmed it and it was such a heartwarming thing. And all of my family were like, oh, this is so cool. Like it was amazing. Even yesterday, like I went to the Sydney Lego Con thing and there was a parent who came up to me and she's like, oh, like, are you Holly? And she was like, oh, this is my daughter.
Really
like,
cool.
Can we take a photo?
Should eat up Lego for some payment. You could have set up a booth.
I found out there was a media line. I was like,
there was a media line? Like, really?
I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I get it, but all right, I'm still gonna make a fun video out of it. I mean, I just dragged my mum along.
Is there a reason why you weren't invited to media?
Oh, probably.
Do you think because of everything that's been happening?
Oh, yeah, I think they're just like, okay, she's not in LAN anymore. We're not gonna like do anything. But I was like, I don't think there's any other like Sydney members in LAN. I mean, Cheap Jokes is like kind of local, but he was up in Newcastle, so.
Let's just backtrack
no one
a
cares
little
about
bit.
Cheap
What
Jokes.
is LAN? For those people who are listening or watching and might not be familiar, what is it?
So LAN is something called the Lego Ambassador Network, and I honestly didn't know it was a thing until I heard other people talk about it. So basically, it's like this little like group and forum thing where like all these people interact, and basically you get recognized if you're like a Lego user group, if you're an online Lego user group, or you're, as they like to call it, fan media, which is basically like if you're an influencer or you're like a blog or a YouTube channel and things like that. So that's what I was. I got accepted into it. And like it also says in there like you have to be like around for a year. Yep. So I remember applying. I was like, well, technically this channel's almost 10 years old, but I've only really started posting again for like 7 months at this point. I ended up getting accepted. I was like, oh, this is cool. So what they'll do is like they'll send you product to review. You can also get like support sets, so you can request specific things. A lot of the time I would request things for live streams because I was like, hey, I want to build things on, like I want to communicate with people, but if I don't have sets, I can't really build anything. And now I have like a backlog that I can't even get through. I'm like, well, this is a new problem. Great problem, don't get me wrong, but I was like, this is odd. And I joined that program, and like there was a lot of rules at the time that were very different to what they currently have now, and I ended up getting kicked out of that program. For better or for worse, I personally am very glad about the decision in the end. Like it was a really big weight off my shoulders that I didn't know was there. And I feel like we just grew in two separate directions. They want very much just like happy Lego, like, oh, here's this product, like, yay, life is great. Whereas like I love talking about like the marketing behind Lego. I love like delving into it. I'm like, this company has issues, like a lot of things. Like there's great aspects about it. I love the product. I have for years. But there's also all of these underlying issues that I feel like people need to talk about. And I know like, especially these days, people say a lot like, oh, like everyone involved in that program is like overly positive and everything.
You get a lot of those comments. And I just want to quickly chime in. So just to cover Caroline and I, the views on this podcast do not reflect the views of the Lego group. We are separate from the Lego group. So what we are talking about here today does not reflect
my personal opinion.
Lego's opinions. Caroline and I's opinion and Holly's is separate from the Lego group. Dan's going to make sure that's in there just so we're all covered because no one needs to get in trouble.
Exactly. Like, no one deserves that. It's not it. Because it's like overall, like to begin with, like I remember first joining, like already like straight off the bat, I'd had like a pretty negative experience because like I joined and at the time like my username was my old one. It said minifig in it and there was like a thread being like, how are people in with like Lego things? They sort of like I guess like we're discreet about it at first, but then like full on just like posted a screenshot of my channel and I was like, I'm like what, 21 at this point? I'm like, you're picking on a 21-year-old girl who like got it. Like if they didn't want my username or if there was a problem and I breached guidelines, they wouldn't have accepted me.
Well, and also too, do you find that Like, we're not a part of that, any of that stuff, because we can't, because we're retailers, obviously. And Caroline and I touch on this because people try to poke your bear all the time, trying to get you to comment about things you're not allowed to talk about. We can talk about it because it doesn't cover in our NDA. Do you think the land community, a lot of the people that are on there, has created a toxic environment for people like you?
I think there is, but I don't think it's like intentional. Firstly, or at least from majority of the people, I don't think it's intentional, but I think just the fact that it's a thing that exists, it's created a really big divide. And I think people like I sometimes can, I guess, get very entitled, or at least like even reflecting back on how I used to think, you sort of get very caught up and are like, I don't want to say like brainwashed, but it's like they definitely, I guess, like put
drinking
some things in your
Kool-Aid
head and are like
drinking the
hey,
Kool-Aid,
like
like
specifically when it came to like the leaks thing, and I guess just like whenever people would find a product early in stores and buy it, like there would be this thing, an uproar from everyone being like, oh, how did this happen? Like this is disgraceful.
Yeah, but that's what happens sometimes, especially with big retail.
And everyone wants to be the first to get the product, the first to blog about it, the
first to show
it's like
the
at the end
product.
of the day, that's how majority of the people in the program grew. Like that's how I grew. I found sets early and it was great. I found the whole thing with the Razor Crest happened. Target sold it early, so suddenly everyone's selling Razor Crest. I was like, sweet, I'll pick that up. Got it like 4 days before anyone else. Like it benefits you, there's no doubt to that. It does. And I remember back in February, all of our I remember like freaking out because like originally I didn't get sent like the Harry Potter promotion that happened in October.
Oh, that's a bit weird.
And I found out about it because someone was like, oh no, like that got sent out. So I wrote up an email and I was like I've been sent all of this other Harry Potter stuff. It's like it's in the username of the channel. Like I have like I know it's not all about like views, but at the time like I was beating channels 4 times the size of me in terms of like view count for Harry Potter specifically.
It's because you're relatable.
And I was like, how like as the promotion as well, like it's a time sensitive thing. People want to plan ahead. Like if it was a store set, look, I wouldn't care. I'd go out and buy it. Yeah. But I'm like, I've bought all of I've got all of the products. I own everything. Like this is a time sensitive thing. They never answered me. They were just like, oh yeah, you should have received an offer. So like I got it in the end and I was like really confused. They never really explained it. So like when it got to January and I still hadn't heard anything in this, like usually it would happen between like the middle of the month. That's when you could post about things. So it was like the middle of January. Usually you get things an hour out and I was like, so where is it? Got it at the end of the month and it said, oh, review embargo. Like I think it was the 26th or something. And I was like, the sets come out in 3 days after. Like this is going to happen in stores. Like people found the Dark Troopers early. The Boba Fett's throne room was in Costco in like the middle of February.
I saw that. I was pretty
it was insane.
As a retailer, it makes it hard, right? Because the Lego world, and not many people outside of the Lego world understand, but anything collectible, cards, hot toys, whatever it is, stamps, everyone wants to be the first. So if you can be the first retailer to drop the product and have enough
people
of it,
will
you're going to go crazy, right?
Oh, yeah,
now, when Costco America had the Boba Fett, like, I think Australia was a little bit behind, but Costco America had it, and I was like...
Yeah, it was like, I think it was like the 15th or something.
It was like a few months though, and
Utah
we were like...
was the first one, and then every other store got it. I think Texas was next. So people are buying it, and there was like threads on the land, people being like we need to be the first people.
Yeah.
And I was like, don't get me wrong, like I think the review embargo should definitely not be 3 days before release.
Yeah, because that's hard.
Yeah, it was really interesting seeing people like say we need to because we're recognized. I'm like, so all these smaller channels that are growing, like you can't have an opportunity. Like if you're not in this group of people, like you're not allowed to be early. You're not allowed to have that stroke of luck sort of thing. I was like, look, if Lego is going to be promising you early set reviews, yeah, they should be early.
I've always found the review system weird, especially with the really Lego fan media, because I do believe that sometimes there's certain ones in the community. I don't like speaking about them because I don't want like their fans to attack me. But like there's certain ones like that I think sometimes their reviews are pushed because they get a lot of product, right? And sometimes products aren't great. You can have a bad Lego set and a good Lego set. But there's some of them now that I think that they feel trapped. And it's been touched on by a lot of big YouTubers who have been... Yeah, there's one in particular we know that had a bit of a cry because he's like, oh, I'm doing it on my own. It's all my own opinion. But you can see how people think that that's not how it works. Because when you're getting thousands of dollars of free products...
Exactly. I think people do get scared of losing it. Like they're very clear to say, hey, you can say whatever you want about the product. But what I learned is that there's like a subtext to that. It's like, yeah, you can say whatever you want about the product, but not whatever you want about like the culture and the company and things like that. Like as soon as you start to criticize, I guess, the company as a whole, like they start to get mad. but I also feel like people are very scared of losing like that
Free
opportunity, because it
Absolutely.
is a massive benefit. Like people don't, I feel like, mention or even just talk about the program as a whole, and I guess like it's a massive financial benefit.
Yeah.
It's massive.
Like,
It
like
is.
if you're not paying for the sets and your video is making like tens of
Yes.
thousands of views, or even just like tens of views, if you're getting 50,000, that's a couple $100 like straight into your pocket. Like
Yeah.
Without having to outlay for
Yeah.
a Star Destroyer or a Falcon or like
Exactly.
the new castle that's
Yeah.
about to come out. Like there's so much involved,
and you,
right?
And you need to get the product early because you need that lead time, because you have to obviously you have to do your review, then you have to get all the editing done,
Exactly.
then you push it out. It's not something that just happens
No.
and you can put your review up as soon as you get the product.
No,
It doesn't work
like
that
especially
way.
with like the $600 castle, like that thing's gonna take forever to
Imagine
build.
having to build that, like, and having to
then-
like
There are so many big sets as well that I feel like like people have gotten really late because they'll just ship them out last minute,
And then
it's
you can't
it's
enjoy
insane.
that building experience, can you? Because in
No.
the back of your mind, you're going, "Gee, I have to post about this."
yeah, I've got to rush. Like
And
this
I-
is like I need to
yeah.
make sure that it's like done before the thing, because again, it's like people want to be first. Like if you get a set late, which like happens quite a lot in Australia. I mean, I never had the problem, but I know a lot of other people have, especially recently. I've seen like Star Wars sets like go up from someone in Europe, and then like the Americans would get it, and I was like, did they ship these out like really late or something? Like everyone's posting at different times. I'm just like, I don't know what's going on.
it's
Like
kind of
I
an
feel
odd
like there was a
system.
big issue recently with like
Yeah.
specifically I've noticed with Star Wars. I think it was like Obi-Wan Starfighter or something. I saw one person post about it, and then like a few days later someone else did, and I was like, either someone's broken an embargo or just like they
Do you
haven't
think that's a
shipped it
Disney
out.
issue? Like
Yes.
Disney being like, you know,
I
'cause
don't think so. I feel like Disney gets annoyed if like people like post early and things like that. Like they'll get agitated. Apparently that was the whole reason like they don't do Toy Fair anymore, is because Disney was like, hey, like all these bootleg
Seriously.
companies are like copying off us. At least like that's what they told us.
Because
in a
when you do
meeting. I
Toy
don't
Fair,
know.
Australian Toy Fair, which hasn't happened for a couple of years, and even this year, because I've got autoimmune, I was like, I don't feel like going. Can you just Skype me? Because I don't want to be in a room with like 50 people coughing. They have like a little room where all the
there's like
secret stuff.
Yeah, there's like a backstage area.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
apparently that's why it happened, because Disney was like, hey, like all of the products that like you're putting, like I remember like 2011, like looking at like the Brick Show's content
Yeah.
on and like Flickr photos of like Harry Potter and Pirates of the Caribbean and all of that, and it was 6 months before it had come out. and
Shout
it
out
was
to the Brick
great.
Show. They are the original Lego
Oh,
YouTubers. They are the ones that are
fantastic.
like,
Absolute inspiration.
Ambassadors, yes.
One day I really hope to meet them at a Lego convention.
because they were
I just feel
kicked
like they're
out of
really smooth.
their YouTube channel was shut down.
Yeah, it was. I remember seeing that. Like, I was like very briefly, like, I guess still involved with Lego. Like, I never stopped loving it. I just sort of hit it and was embarrassed for people to know. So it's like I don't only really buy like CMFs, the Scooby Doo castles,
Yeah, but
and
Scooby-Doo
like
was awesome.
Dimensions.
Yes.
Oh, I'm so glad I bought that. Saved myself so much money.
yeah.
Looking back now, I'm like,
Oh yeah.
this is great. And even then, I was like, oh, do I buy the castle? It's expensive. Like, I hid
Yes.
that from my dad.
Are you
for
still a big
ages.
Scooby Doo fan?
Oh, definitely. That 2002 movie, I was raised on that. It was so cringy, and it's so bad and very 2000s.
So you've been to Warner Brothers and been on
The
the
last time I went, the ride was shut for like the refurb,
Oh,
so
sad
I haven't
face.
like gone on like the updated one. But oh, I loved it. That movie's so
I
good.
think it's hard to being like, especially with someone like the Brick Show, people don't realize that if you break Lego rules, Lego, it's a big thing. And I don't think any
Yeah,
standard
they
person that
don't like
watches or
you.
listen or like customers, and they get funny with all of us because they're like, oh, aren't you talking about it? It's like, because we're not allowed to.
Not allowed to
And the
talk
Brick
about
Show,
it.
I remember when they were shut down, and it killed a lot of their revenue because they broke, I don't know what it was, they broke some sort
Yeah,
of
it was
embargo.
like I think from memory, because I remember when it happened, it was like roughly like it was right as I sort of like got really back into Lego. It's
Yeah.
like Harry Potter was kicking off again, like 2018, I think it was. From memory, from the last time I watched the video where they talked about it, I'm pretty sure they posted a video, like a photo or something of like the full Harry Potter CMF series.
That's right, that's what
and
it was.
like
yeah.
it was like their third strike, because like I remember like they would used to post like the confidential stamped images
Which
all the time.
is
Like
a
I
big
would,
no-no for all of us.
yeah, I would always like go and like find them like whenever there was like a new
Because
product
they used
or
to leak
something.
everything, even before we
Oh, yeah.
had the store, and even when we
Yes.
would find out product releases before Lego from them, like
Yeah.
because they'd be like, "Oh, look,"
Yeah,
and
they
you'd be like,
have
"Oh,
all the catalog things. Like that was very widely spread back then as well. So I think it was like third strike, and it was like at that point they're just like, why would we fight for that? Like,
but it's like
no point.
when they got shut down, I was pretty like, oh, but it happens, right? Because
Yeah.
in the new media, because now we're in a new media world with
Yes.
like TikTok and all this sort of crazy stuff. How have you found like the toxicity of like YouTube? Like, how have you found like the creepiness?
Well, hang
and-
on. Has there been toxicity? Has there been creepiness?
it's YouTube. There has to be, right? Like,
no, there definitely was in like the first like 6 months. Like I remember like straight as like there was a period I gained 10,000 subscribers in 1 month.
Whoa, that's insane.
Crazy. Like I remember like it happened and everyone's like, oh, she's gonna like hit like 100,000 by the end of the year, and I was like, this isn't.
No,
this is a one-off. This is like
growth.
It's not sustainable too.
No.
Like to be like,
and like I knew that straight off the bat. I was like, this isn't gonna happen forever. Look, I'm very excited. Like 10,000 is a massive milestone.
Yes.
Like this is incredible. But I'm like, I know that that's not gonna continue forever. And I feel like at that point as well, everyone's like, oh, it's because she's a girl. It's like, because at that point, like there was like girls around, but not many, and like it wasn't as prominent. I feel like after sort of that point and like following like the next, I'd say 6 to 8 months or so, like more and more started to like come out and like I guess like make accounts and post more, which I love. And it's like I'm friends with a lot of these people. Every time I see a girl like on TikTok especially, Emily, love you.
She's
also
awesome.
Claire, the plastic architect, love you guys. Even like the TikTok, like on TikTok I see like girls posting about it, I'm like, follow. Just because you're a girl and you like Lego, I'm like, there's lovely to see like more of them. Like I get so excited, and it's really cool. But back like when I first started posting, like I feel like it wasn't as big of a thing. So everyone's like, oh, like it's because like you like that. It's like you had LEV toys in like the friends and sort of like the very children's content demographic. But besides that, there wasn't really anyone talking about, I guess, sort of like your more like, I want to call it mainstream Lego things or like boy Lego things, but we all know that's not a thing. It's like, but like Harry Potter's a really interesting one because it's like I did one TikTok on Grimwood Place, and that one, I looked at the statistics, is like 95% women, which is so cool because I'm like, Harry Potter is a theme that I feel like that is a girl's like theme. Like that is a really big entry point, I feel like, for a lot of females in Lego. And like I also talk about a lot about like Star Wars and Marvel because like those are just interests of mine. And I feel like that is why like people, I guess, got really annoyed at like to begin with. So there was like a bit of like creepiness, but it didn't last. Like it faded out, and I feel like people were just like, oh no, like she's not just like doing this to like make money like really quickly. It's like, oh, she's still posting. She's like really into this product. Oh, she has this like knowledge from like years ago. Oh, she liked these things as a kid. Like, oh, she's an actual fan.
You're at every Lego thing, and I'm like, man, she's at Brickworld Chicago, and she's doing all this cool stuff.
I'm so annoyed that I can't make it to Brick Fair, Virginia. I remember looking at flights after Brickworld Chicago, and I was like, all right, what if I did a last minute trip? It was like $5,000. I was like, I cannot do that in any world. So next year,
you're not Mr. Beast, Holly. You can't just waste millions of dollars.
Some of those internal flights in the US are very pricey.
They are. It's like I had to do like a last minute one a couple of months ago, and it was like 700 Australian dollars.
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy. It was like before like during pandemic when I was over there. And I came home very abruptly because the world was shutting down. Like one of my internal flights was like $1,200, and I was just like, "What?" And I got my money back, thankfully. But you're still like, "This is a lot of money." Like because you know we're used to $300 flight to Perth. Like you know, like it's that sort of stuff.
It's like nice, quick, easy, cheap.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm definitely want to because I really want to go back to Brickworld Chicago. It was really nice. Like I stayed at the hotel like on the venue, which was pricey, but it was like good just to be able to walk down a hallway.
#YouTube money.
Tax deductible. We love it. Thank you, ATO. So I like booked it so convenient. I could go back because like it got really cold at night. Like it was 30 degrees outside, but the hall was so cold. So I was just run up, get a jumper, walk back down. Okay, I'm good. Like I'm back here. I'm fine. Like there was also like a lot of like good food options. Like you could like there was like a poke place that people kept going to eat, and I was like, all right, like I feel like good. Like I'm eating properly. Like I'm eating like actual food.
You
like,
can
I'm
actually
not constantly,
find
like, having
nice-ish
trash.
food in America. Like people complain, oh, it's junk, but you can actually find good quality food if you look.
You need to spend a little bit more, of course, but you can find it.
Yeah. And it was like really easy to fly in and out of as well. I was like being Chicago. I mean, technically now, like I looked at it. I mean, back when I looked at it, the borders were shut. So like going to Virginia had another flight involved.
Yeah.
But it's like I look now and I'm like, okay, I could get to Washington from Dallas easily. But I was like, just Chicago, it's faster. It's easier. It's a bit more of an attractive location. Like if you wanted to, you could go into the city. Like it's an hour away. Like there was a lot more sort of surrounding the convention to go and do. And I just think for me, like it was easy. There was a lot of places to hang out. Like there was a huge lobby. Like we even like hung out in like a couple of like people's rooms. Like there was just a lot more places to socialize and interact, like including all the restaurants. And I'm like, I'd rather go there. From everything I hear about Virginia, it's very much like, okay, you sort of have to hang out in the convention hall or like in the hotel room, and you have to walk across a car park, and there's not really anything around here. And it's like, I've heard like one of my friends, Lauren, she called it like very much like summer camp. And just like, oh yeah, like all the boys getting together, and it's like very much as well a younger demographic. Like I feel like it's more of like the teenagers and sort of thing. Whereas like Chicago, there was like a lot of like AFOLs as well as like a lot of kids, which was like really cool. It was really well run. I definitely really want to go back.
I want to go.
Like,
I was meant to go this year, but Corona.
Yeah, you wanna just wait a little bit longer.
Yeah, we'll
There'll
go.
be plenty of opportunities to go. Yeah.
So next year I'm like, let's go.
Have we covered everything, Holly? Do you want to air any dirty laundry? Is there any people on YouTube you hate?
There's at least like 3. Or not hate, but it's like there are like I've definitely like I learned a lot over like the last year of just like I guess like people just like they really just like want to get under your skin, and it's like I've heard things about like people talking behind my back. And
there's a few Lego fan media that I'm not a fan of, but I won't air it in public.
So it's like I would find like I would step away from people, and then like I think people would get mad or something, and I'm just like, look, I've got like a really supportive friend group that like are all very encouraging of other people's content. Like we don't really watch each other's content for the most part, besides a couple of things, but we all cheer each other on.
Yeah.
And, like,
we're the same. Like we've been chatting quite regularly for Instagram and Facebook. And,
exactly. It's like you don't have to.
You don't have to be like but it is what it is. But thank you so much.
No, you're very
for making
welcome.
the time.
I had a fantastic time.
Good for making the time for us, because it's been a bit of a weird year and trying to book things and
it wasn't easy. You did have to get up very early this morning.
Luckily, I was still slightly jet lagged, so it was like I woke up before my alarm.
If anyone wants to know, Holly got a hire car. It's a Ferrari because she's a YouTuber.
No, imagine next time. Get like a roll up in a G-Wagon. Thank you, Melbourne.
Could be like Darway. He's got a Lambo. Like you could be like,
Mate, I sold my car. In fact, I was just like, I work from home.
It's a little Hyundai Getz, I think. It's a little jelly bean. I just want to clarify. So no one attack her, please.
It was like the smallest, like cheapest hatchback. They were like, do you want to upgrade to an SUV for $15? I was like, I have a backpack. Like, I'm fine. I don't care.
Well, follow Holly on all her channels. We'll put the links down. Like, Holly's more famous than me, so like, please support Holly and support us. That'd be awesome.
Woo! Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Holly.
I really appreciate it.